Hi everyone, welcome all of you to this first video on computer security concepts. I'm going to start a lecture series with the objective of giving information about the subject of cryptography and network security, which will give you the foundation for later on courses like your network security and cyber security, forensics. The basic building blocks, which are the algorithms, will be covered in this particular course. So let's start with my first video, which I'm going to discuss about the definition. Why do we need computer security? What is the term called as CIA Triad? And then what are the current challenges that security faces? Okay, so let's get going and let's see. As I said, the first things first, what is the need for security? Why should we bother about learning about security? As I said before, modern day world is cyber world. What is you mean by cyber world? So we are actually living in the era of universal electronic connectivity. Anywhere you see, from the morning till evening, everything that you do is somehow has an internet component attached to it. Though it has made our lives much more easier. We can communicate with anyone. We can do banking sitting at home. We can do lot. We can learn even through online. A lot of things are happening. But similarly, where there is good, there is evil as well. This has given scope to a lot of attackers or malicious parties to have access to the information where they usually won't have. So network security has become a vital cog in safeguarding home networks as well as corporate businesses. Okay. And as I told you, because now our information is available on the internet, you have to safeguard it. You have to ensure that it is safe from prying parties. So security breaches and attacks have become more common, with new ways of deploying a cyber attack being developed every day. Day by day, the security mechanisms are evolving. We are coming out with new techniques, new mechanisms, new algorithms to safeguard our data. Similarly, the cyber criminals are also getting new ways to attack the systems and penetrate your security barriers. One thing, 100% security is just a myth. There is no system which is 100% secure. There will be always some kind of vulnerability to it. So no network is immune to attack. And if security isn't properly implemented, then dire consequences can be expected in terms of exposure of sensitive information, fraud, theft, or even worse consequences. Okay. So with this, you must have got an idea why security is important and why we should study about network security or cyber security or computer security. So before we proceed further, let me define computer security in terms of NIST. So the NIST Computer Security Handbook defines the term computer security as follows. Now, what is this NIST? NIST actually stands for National Institute of Standards and Technology. It is an US-based standard which has given a lot of definitions and other things. We will be discussing more about it in our future video lectures. Okay. So what is the definition of computer security as defined by NIST? It says that the protection afforded to an automated information system in order to attain the applicable objectives of preserving the integrity, availability, and confidentiality of the information system resources, which might be anything, hardware, software, firmware, information data, and telecommunications. So it is saying that whatever type of protection that you're trying to provide for an information system or an automated information system. Here, an automated information system is nothing but which actually saves, collects, gathers, and uses your data or your sensitive data in order to attain the applicable objectives of preserving the. So what are the three objectives that you're trying to implement here? We call it as integrity, availability, and confidentiality of the information system resources. So to define, to understand this in a better way, let us pick apart these three objectives and let us try to understand what are these three objectives are and why are they so important for your security. So these three things I'm slightly changing the order. We call them as CIA Triad. So NIST definition introduces the three core components that are at the heart of computer security. You can see the first one is confidentiality, the second one is integrity, and the third one is availability. These three put together, we call them as CIA Triad. So these are the core objectives of security. So when you're trying to say that I want to implement security for a particular system, these are the three things that you have to look after. So these three encapsulate the fundamental security objectives for both data as well as information and computing services. So not only just for your data, but also for the services that your information system might provide. For all those things, these are the three components that are to be taken care of. So what are these three? Why are these three important? First one is confidentiality. It actually tells you where you have to prevent the disclosure of information to unauthorized people, resources, or processes. Whether it might be an individual or an organization, anything, you'll have some kind of sensitive information, your personal information. You don't want this information to be publicly available, or some outsider or an unwanted party to come in and look at this kind of information. So would you tell your account passwords and everyone you might have written down somewhere? You don't want somebody else to come and see it. That is what confidentiality is about. When you want to send information to your friend, you expect only your friend to see and read that message, not everyone which is sitting in between. That comes under confidentiality. Second one is integrity. We will be discussing more about these three objectives in the video on security services. I will be giving more examples for these three key terms there. So just try to understand what is what in this particular video, as we are only dealing with the basics or the basic building blocks. Okay. Second one is called as the integrity. So integrity refers to the accuracy, consistency, and trustworthiness of the data. So you want to ensure that the data has not been modified. Once again, if you imagine that you and your friend are communicating, and confidentiality tells you, let me say that this is you, A, okay, and this might be your friend B, and you are sending some messages, or you're communicating to B, you're sending a message. Now, confidentiality ensures that this message, whatever you're sending, is only visible to B, but not by some attacker who is sitting on the network and looking at your messages. Okay. So only B, we should be able to look at this and understand what is this. Okay. This is your confidentiality. Integrity tells you that whatever message you are sending to B, it should be only be modified by either you or your friend, not by somebody sitting in between. So trustworthiness of the data, accuracy of the data, and also B should be feeling confident that this message actually came from A, not from D, masquerading as A. So all those terms, accuracy of the data so that it is not modified, consistency of the data, delivered in the right order, delivered at the right time, and trustworthiness of the data. This data is actually coming from the person who claims it to be. So if you are sending a message to B, B should be confident that this message in fact came from you, but not from somebody else. That is called as integrity. And the final one, we call it as availability. It ensures that information is accessible by authorized users when needed. So if you are having a server in your campus and you store all the information on that server, availability tells you that this particular service or your server or the information in the server should be available to all the authorized users. So whomever are working in your campus or whomever are authorized to use the information that is stored on the server should be able to use it whenever they need. So if I want to use it right now, that server should be available to me. That comes under availability. So these are the three core components that form the definition of computer security as defined by NIST. Okay. So moving on. So to even, how do I say it? To even understand it better, so we have the confidentiality is actually divided into two components, or the understanding of the confidentiality part is now based on two things. First one is data confidentiality. As I just told you earlier, data confidentiality assures that private or confidential information, that is your information, is not made available or disclosed to unauthorized individuals. That is what we call as data confidentiality. So whichever sensitive information you have, it should only be visible or available to me or to my communicating party, but not for everyone. Similarly, privacy assures that individuals control or influence what information related to them may be collected and stored, and by whom and to whom that information may be disclosed. To understand easily, there is something we call it as PII, personally identifiable information. Now imagine you are going to a hospital. There you convey all your health history, your problems to the doctor. He will note them down. That particular medical history is a sensitive information. You assume that the hospital will not share that information to anybody else. You are giving that information to the doctor. But once you go home, imagine that the hospital has sold this information to a medical company or to another pharmaceutical company. Once you go home, you will be receiving a call from that company saying that, hey, it seems that you got this disease. We are developing a new drug. Do you want to try it? We are offering it for a discount. What will be your reaction? You are assuming that that is your private information and nobody else is going to share that information with somebody else. You have to have that control. You can actually lodge a complaint against the hospital saying that this hospital has misused my information. That is what privacy is about. It ensures that individuals like us, control or influence what information related to them may be collected. So what kind of information am I collecting from you? And where am I going to store it? And who am I going to share this information with? All that comes under privacy. That is our personal information. Okay. Now, similarly, integrity can also be explained through these two components. The first one is being data integrity. As I told you, assures that information which is both stored and also during transmission and programs are changed only in a specified and authorized manner. So no unauthorized individual is going to have access or going to access and change that information. Any changes or modifications or alterations to the data should be done by the authorized individuals only. That comes under data integrity. Then what do you mean by system integrity? It assures that a system performs its intended function in an unimpaired manner, free from deliberate or inadvertent unauthorized manipulation of the system. To understand what is system integrity, let us say that if you want to make a call on your mobile phone and you're trying to put in some number and your mobile phone does completely the opposite thing, or you log on to a website and you're trying to access something, but your website does not respond, or whichever information you're typing in is not visible on the screen. That means the system has been compromised. So whatever you are expecting the system to do, it is not doing, it is not functioning in that manner. That should not also happen. Integrity or system integrity has to ensure that the systems or the processes or the software, whichever you are using, has to work in the manner they are designed for. There should not be alterations or something which is done by a third party or an unauthorized individual so that it does as a different function to what it is actually designed to do. That comes under system integrity. So confidentiality covers data confidentiality and privacy, which is personal privacy. Integrity covers data integrity and system integrity. So your data must not be modified. At the same time, your system must not be compromised. Your system or process, whatever you're designed it to do a particular task, it must work in that particular manner only. It should not be compromised so that it works in a different way. Okay. Let's come to the availability also. Availability, as I told you, it assures that the systems work promptly and service is not denied to authorized users. So if you are an authorized individual, you have to ensure that the particular service is always available to your authorized user. And how do you ensure availability? You have to include system redundancy, system backup, increased system resiliency, equipment maintenance, up-to-date operating systems and software, and plans in place to recover quickly from unforeseen disasters. A simple example might be your banking application. Now, if you want to do some kind of financial transaction and you log into the bank, suddenly the bank says the servers are down for maintenance or it is not available because of some issue. How do you feel? You are as an authorized bank user, once you give your credentials, you expect the bank to provide 24/7 service to you, isn't it? Also, the availability is measured in terms of 5 nines, 99.999%. A system or any service which provides you 5 nines of availability means that there is only a downtime of around 5.5 minutes per year. That is called as 5 nines. There are 3 nines and 7 nines also, but usually we count or we measure the availability of a service in that particular format. So you have to understand that if you are an authorized user, you expect the service to be there. Just like also think about Google today. Recently, Google was down for some 1 hour or so. Many people are panicked, and even WhatsApp. You expect the WhatsApp to be always on. Suddenly, WhatsApp was down for a couple of hours, and everybody was rebooting their systems, checking their software, because we are so assured that WhatsApp is always available. It's always a fault from our side. That comes under availability. So to plan for availability, you have to understand that you have to always plan in such a way that there is some redundancy, backup, even for natural disasters. If something happens and if servers go down, you automatically have to switch on to another service or so, or to another backup server. All that comes under availability. Okay. Now, there is something called as FIPS, FIPS. Now, FIPS 199, this is also one of the standards given by NIST, which stands for Standards for Security Categorization of Federal Information and Information Systems. So this is the standard given by NIST. Once again, NIST. Okay. So standards for security categorization of a federal information and information systems. Sometimes you also come across a term called as FIPS, PUBs. We simply call it as Federal Information Processing Standard Publication Number. There is always a number attached to it, which gives you the number, the standard for the publication. So FIPS Pub 199, Federal Information Processing Standard Publication Number 199. So what it does is it provides a useful characterization of these three objectives in terms of requirements and also the definition of a loss of security in each category. As I told you, there are three core components for security, isn't it? One of them is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, this FIPS 199 actually gives you what we are expecting out of it. And in case if something is lost for these three objectives, what would be the loss be? Or how do you measure the loss? First thing is confidentiality, as we already discussed. So confidentiality means authorized restrictions on information access and disclosure. Also, protection of personal privacy and proprietary information. These are my two objectives to ensure confidentiality. And if in case if there is a loss of confidentiality, it leads to unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information. So whichever information that you feel is private, which is related to you, might be displayed or might be available to unauthorized parties. Come to integrity. So integrity tells you that you have to guard against unauthorized modification or even destruction of data. And also you have to ensure information non-repudiation and authenticity. So we have to ensure that it is genuine and a center cannot deny it, and there is no unauthorized modification or even destruction of data. So if there is a loss of integrity, which results in authorized modification or destruction of data, so the third party might be able to change your information. So if you are sending a message or if you're doing a financial transaction on your bank saying that please send so and so 10,000 to a particular account, I can remove a zero there or I can add another zero there. That comes under the loss of integrity. Third one is availability. It has to ensure timely access to the information system. It also has to ensure reliable access to the information system. And if a loss of availability, which means that it leads to disruption of access to or use of the information system, I might lose the access to the system, or the system might be completely down. So these are the three things. These are the three objectives of, we call them as CIA Triad, and these are the things which we have to implement in order to ensure these three objectives. And this is how loss in each category will reflect on. Okay. And additionally to these three things, there are two other terms which are added, or two other concepts which are added to CIA Triad to give you a better picture of security requirements. The first one is authenticity. And during integrity, I told you that any individual has to be assured that the communicating party is the one which you are trying to communicate with. So here, authenticity is going to tell you that the property of being genuine and being able to be verified and trusted. So confidence in the validity of a transmission, a message, or the message originator. In other words, what you're trying to say here is authentication is the process where you are proving to the system, you yourself are proving to the system that you are who you say you are. In other words, I am saying that I am Mukesh. I have to prove to the system that in fact I am Mukesh, whom I am claiming to be. How do you do that? Now, whenever you want to log into your bank system, what you do? You get an OTP, you have a password, isn't it? You have a password and sometimes maybe biometrics. So all those things comes under your authenticity. In other words, this consists of techniques used to verify the identity of a message, user or a system as claimed. You are just verifying whether the party is a genuine one or not, whether the message is coming from the genuine sender or not, or if this is whether the sender is genuine or not. All those things comes under authenticity. In a way, multi-factor authentication is there. And multi-factor authentication, when you see, of course, when you go to the movies, you might watch, there are three things that are usually added. The first one being what you know, maybe a PIN number or your password. The second one is what you have. It might be an ID card or a token or something, access card, whatever it is. The third one is what you are, maybe your fingerprint and your iris scan or any other biometrics. So when you see there might be a door locked in the movies, when you go there, the first thing is you have to scan your identity card. That is what you have. The second one is after putting your identity card, it might prompt you for a PIN number or a password. Then you have to enter your PIN number. That is what you know. And the third one is after the first two steps are successful, then you go for the third step where you are verified with what you are, maybe your iris scan or your fingerprint. So these three factors can be put together for authenticating an individual. Of course, there are many other means to do so. The second concept which has been added for, as I said, for better understanding of security is something called as accountability. Accountability, the security goal that generates the requirement for actions of an entity to be traced uniquely to that entity. So whatever you are doing on the system, from the time you log on to the system till you log out of the system, every action should be accounted for. And I should be able to trace which individual or system or process has performed this action. That is what accountability is. Okay, so this supports non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means if you are denying a sent message or denying a received message, that comes under non-repudiation. Deterrence is just to prevent you doing some action, making you fear of the consequences. In other terms, if you are going fast if you are speeding on the road, you expect a speeding ticket, so automatically you slow down. That is called as deterrence. Fault isolation, intrusion detection to verify where something happened, and prevention, and after action recovery and legal action. So accountability, what it actually deals with is traceability. Traceability of actions performed by a user, process, or device. As I told you, any action that has been performed on the system must be traced back to one individual, one process, or one system, not just a group. And we cannot just say that I don't know who did it. Okay, that comes under accountability. You might ask me, why do we need accountability? Accountability actually deals with logs and audits. So if you have done some action, if I cannot trace it back to you, whom would I punish? You have to bear the consequences of your actions, whether you do it inadvertently or accidentally or knowingly. Irrespective how you do it, if you are taking any action or whatever, if the action threatens the security of your information system, it has to be traced back so that some kind of legal action or after action can be taken place. That comes under accountability. So confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, and accountability. These are all the security objectives. Okay. Now, so according to the FIPS 199, should there be a loss of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, organizations must determine the potential impact according to the 3 FISMA compliance levels. What do you mean by FISMA? Federal Information Security Management Act. It actually defines 3 compliance levels: low level, moderate impact, and high impact. These are the 3 levels. So these are three levels. Basically, if you see low impact, this is how, I mean, it actually tells you what are the parameters to look for in a particular information system. You can see if you study this low impact, a breach that causes a degradation in the mission capability to an extent somewhat and duration that the organization is able to perform its primary functions, but the effectiveness of the functions is notably reduced. So low impact, as the name itself tells you, that there is an impact which might be little. So the functions, the effectiveness of the functions can be reduced, but the system will not stop functioning. Similarly, a breach that results in minor damage to the organizational assets, a breach that results in minor financial loss, and similarly minor harm to the individuals. This comes under the low impact category. Moderate impact category also, you can see this. You can see it is noticeably reduced the effectiveness of the functions, whereas in case of a moderate impact, you can see that it is significantly reduced. It says, so rather than here minor, we place a significant impact. So significant damage to the organizational assets, financial loss, even harm to the individuals. In the same way, if you go to the high impact, you can see it, the organization might be impacted in such a way that most of the functions might come to a standstill. The information system might not be able to function properly. It has to halt some of these functions. Okay. And a breach that results in the major damage, major financial loss, or catastrophic harm to the individuals. So these are the three different levels of impact: low impact, moderate impact, and high impact. Okay. Last thing, what are the challenges to computer security? What makes you feel that there are challenges to security? There are a lot of challenges. First things first, security is not at all simple. Even though we say confidentiality, integrity, availability, these are small terms which might look straightforward, but the techniques, mechanisms, algorithms, policies that need to be implemented to ensure that these terms stick are quite complex. There is a lot of implementation has to be taken place. Second one, potential attacks on a security mechanism. If you are thinking of implementing a particular mechanism to ensure security, you have to think in such a way that how this particular system can be attacked, how an attacker thinks, and what are the different weaknesses that that attacker might look to exploit in the system. So you have to think beyond, think in the future. Third one is, of course, you might think and you might place different systems to counteract all of those ones, but these procedures which you want to provide here may prove counterintuitive. Counterintuitive means they work quite opposite to what you are expecting it to do. They might happen counterintuitive. You might put some controls to ensure that the users might not access a particular system, but it might restrict access to the authorized users also. Like that, you have to take care of those things as well. Next one is the security mechanisms involve multiple algorithms and usage of secret information. This is very important. So what do you mean by the secret information? So if you are a network administrator and if you want to implement authentication mechanisms, you want to ensure that only your people or the people who you employed will only have access. So you collect their fingerprints, you collect their passwords, you give them ID cards, all those things. You are gathering all this information. Now there has to be a system, a secure system in place, which will enable you to collect this information, gather this. How do you store it so that somebody else might not come and attack the system? They might not steal their fingerprints or they might not steal their passwords. And how do you implement a system which will make use of this information and grant you access? Even though it looks simple, it is a very complex task. You have to design the algorithms. Sometimes you might put a delay sensitive one. Like, let us say if I entered my ID card, I have to enter the PIN in the next 30 seconds. What if there is a delay? What happens at that time? Maybe your protocols might work. There might be a time delay with your protocols. Your network communication might be delayed. So all those things have to be taken care of. There are a lot of things which have to put into place to work with these security mechanisms. As I told you, it is not straightforward. And where do you want to deploy the security mechanisms? Of course, as I said, this itself is a very Herculean task. And when you come to this, where do you want to place this? Where do you want to place a scanner? Where do you want to put your fingerprint reader? All those things, physical placement, logical sense. Where do you want the people to enter their passwords, their fingerprints, all those things? Where to deploy the security mechanisms is another issue. And Always a battle of wits between the perpetrator and a designer bar administrator. In a sense, as the security administrator, you have to ensure that all your weaknesses are plugged. You have to ensure that there is no even one hole through which an attacker can creep into your system. You have to fortify everything. But from an attacker's perspective, he just needs to look at a single loophole, a single weakness in the system where he can exploit and then enter into your system. So that is what it's always a battle of wits. And system managers tends to perceive little benefit on security investment until a security failure happens. So you install a lot of things, a lot of firewalls, all these systems, and you spend a lot of money on that. But the benefit of all this implementation will only be visible if there is a security attack that happens. If there is no attack, most people tend to see that it is all a waste investment. So some people do have the tendency to perceive that this whatever investment you are putting it on for security practices is a no return investment, but it is not true. Security requires regular constant monitoring, which is difficult in the today's short-term and overloaded environment. It requires more personnel, it requires dedicated time, dedicated personnel to keep on monitoring the systems, to keep on monitoring the alerts or events that are happening. Of course, once again, it has to deal with money and the jobs that are in the security domain. And another one is security is often incorporated as an afterthought rather than integral part of the process. Nowadays, this has changed. Earlier, they used to design the systems, and maybe after designing the system and after implementation, only when a time comes for security, they used to attach security as an additional component, but not as an integral part of your system design. Nowadays, they changed it. Even just with your Windows 11, they have come up with various security tools integrated into the operating system. Now, this has changed. And the last thing is the users and administrators view strong security as an impediment to free usage of a system, just like us. See, if you want to go to a website and you want to download something and your antivirus always pops up saying, don't go there, don't go there. You'll simply disable it. You'll simply ignore the thing. And even when you're playing games or something, if your antivirus is slowing it down, we tend to disable the antivirus so that we get most effective usage of the system or free usage of the system. This is the case with most of the security administrators as well. These users or the system administrators might always look at as security, where you implement these authentication mechanisms or firewalls to block these things as an impediment of free usage of the system. Convenience. They say that the user convenience is gone, but that is not the case. It is all the systems are there to protect you. So these are the different things that can be considered as challenges to computer security. So with that, we'll stop here. And in the next video, I'll talk about the OSA architecture. What is what, how do you define an attack and all those things. Till then, take care and good luck.